So some of Sharethrough's key initiatives in terms of sustainability, in fact, there are many of them. We've been quite involved in the topic for more than, I would say, maybe 18 to 24 months. We started working on that, both as a company, understanding our own carbon emissions for scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, so measuring our own emissions, putting in place some initiatives to lower our own emissions. And we also became last year, so a year ago, the first ad exchange launching green media products. So allowing brands and agencies to deliver low emission campaigns or carbon neutral campaigns if they want to go until the stage of compensating for carbon emissions. And since then we've done many different things, both in terms of products that aims to reduce carbon emissions and also trying to educate the market. You know, we've done the Green Media Summit in New York, the first Green Media Summit in New York in April 2023, which was a great success to bring people together on that topic.
So the RTV 2.6 protocol was developed with connected television and digital video in mind, both from an efficiency perspective as well as it has strong sustainability implications. Former versions of the RTV protocol were not efficient when it comes to what's called pod bidding. Pod bidding is the means by which you can more precisely bid on TV spots, whether it's CTV or addressable linear spots, than prior versions of the protocol. So in prior versions of the protocol, if you had a TV spot with a TV pod with three spots, you could spin up as many as 9 to 12 to 15 different RTB requests. And every time there's an RTB request, that requires a computer to process the request, which uses CPU, which uses power, which burns carbon. In the new version of the protocol, which is much more efficient, you can actually instantiate an RTB request per spot in the pod. So that 3-spot pod would now only instantiate 3 calls. So it's more, not only is it more efficient from a sustainability perspective, but also gives advertisers and media companies greater optionality in terms of how media companies want to package up their television inventory through RTB. And it also gives advertisers a lot more flexibility in terms of cherry picking spots within a pod.
The industry is not moving fast enough, it would be what I would say. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't great things that are starting to happen, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. So of those great things, some are working really well. We need to double and triple down on those. Those that are working kind of well, we need to optimize them and fine tune them. And then some things, we've got to throw them away and we've got to pull in other things. So a lot of what's going on in the day-to-day life of AdNet Zero, we have working groups that are focused on production and media, and they're up and running. But what's happening is that ideas, initiatives, starter guides, best practices, references, banks of case studies, they're all being propped up for 2 reasons. Educate more, and also start to begin to measure. And actually, we can begin to measure starting now. In production, we have a calculator. It's called AdGreen. We have reference guides, also from AdGreen, but also through partnership with Green the Bid in the United States. Fantastic. So there's measurement going on. We're onboarding the platform into the executive producer community within a lot of the US-based creative agencies. And guess what? We are already building a bank of case studies that is going to allow us in very short order, certainly by the end of this year, to have a baseline and to have a bank of data that shows where the carbon is sitting and how we can make smart switches.
Collaboration is huge, right? Especially when we're trying to take on, and some of these questions come up, is this sustainability thing real, right? Like, or is it just a money grab for people that, like, Brian O'Kelly created the problem, right? He jokes about this and now he's trying to solve it, right? We overcomplicate things in the programmatic space. And by overcomplicating it, there are so many players in the space, and it creates opportunity for growth and competition and being able to have brands grow more sustainably and more achieve higher outcomes. With all that competition, collaboration is key, especially when we're thinking about sustainability, because it touches every single part of the media buying process. And so I think we are a part of AdNet Zero. We are one of the founding members of the US chapter that they've had. And it's about, I think they're so important with IAB Tech Lab and GARM, because we need a unbiased opinion on what should be measured and how it should be measured, right? As a DSP, our perspective is we don't want anything to do with measurement, right? I used to work at Nielsen. I understand the currency of that. It's not our job to tell you what signal to optimize against. Our signal is our objective, and what we're required to do for our brands is to make the signal they want to use actionable.
There's two main things we're doing, one of which is to do with our the media supply chain. WPP is committed to reduce our scope 1 and 2 emissions by 84% by 2025. But the majority of our emissions, like most companies, sit in scope 3. So 98% of our emissions are in scope 3, which is basically the produce of our work. And 55% of those emissions sit in the media supply chain. So the energy consumed in the media, getting messages from where we broadcast them in front of the eyes of consumers. So we're doing it at a Group M level because it's important to have consistency, but we've published a paper called Calculating a Cleaner Future, which is focused on how we reduce emissions within our supply chain by 50% by 2030.
So at IPG, our holding company, for many years we've been focused on climate action. We have a sustainability report which holds us accountable for the emissions that we are generating in our business across scope 1, 2, and 3. We are also working actively with our clients to help them in the downstream emission measurement that is required for them to report to their shareholders. So it's incumbent upon us to ensure that we're working with the industry to accurately, responsibly measure emissions, working ultimately towards a reduction of those in our operations and across the full supply chain.